Hey everyone, welcome to the Grind. Today we're going to be discussing the message that we heard over the weekend. And this past weekend, we had a guest speaker, Apostle Les Bowling, who came and shared with us about 4 areas of significance. And, he was with us during the week with HKSSM as well as our leaders. And, he's a friend of ICA, and he's been, I think the first time I heard him was actually 2015. I was looking through my notes. He's, been coming to us for a while, and every single time he comes, I'm always learning so much from him, and he's, such an encouragement. So yeah, it was really cool, really encouraging to have him and just to pour into our lives. So let's talk about the Sunday's message. So anything that stood out to you from him?
Keep moving forward.
Every time he did it, all I could hear was Dory.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, Dory?
I think he made a good point about withholding. We'll talk more about that later. But we always focus on abuse in terms of aggression towards someone, but actually the withholding, the negative aggression is equally important to address. And I think many people are hurt by that as well.
Yeah. I think the thing that he talked about, this is just a commercial break, when he's talking about your tough season. So I like what he said, your hard season is not the only season, your worst season is not your forever season. And the important thing is what you're going through isn't as important as where we're going, and what we're going to is important, but whom you're going with is even more important. So I think the idea is that to know that, Jesus is walking with you. And I think this was encouraging, is that God is predictable and stable in character, but unpredictable in activity. So, the man was just, all his lines were just quotes. I'm like, just hold up just a second. Let me just, you know what? I'm just going to wait till I watch the YouTube recording and just carry on. But yeah, it was really a message full of just chock full of wisdom. Listen to it again, and it's just okay. So let's talk about the 4 areas. First one was a divine purpose that he addressed. Okay, why is it important that we discover and walk in our divine purpose?
I think the way I understood this is I'm gonna use a personal example. I do a lot of how do you say this, handiwork, doing with a lot of house repairs. So I have my own toolkit. Okay. And there's one screwdriver that's a star, right? Okay. And I always have this error of kind of using one size too small, right? That it works initially, but then if you exert too much force, first of all, you could damage the star, the hex, which is me. Or you could damage the screw or the bolt. Then you're damaging others, and then over time it becomes to a point where it's so smoothing out that you could turn the screwdriver, it's not turning it because it has no grip. So basically, it becomes efficient. I think this is the way I would like to translate it to my own application, that if we can make it work, we can force it to work. But I think in the long run, we're either gonna hurt ourselves or others, and you're just being inefficient. There's so much more potential that you probably have, but it's just not being utilized right.
Yeah, similar to Dom, I was thinking about how our bodies need sleep, and if we insist sleep is for the weak and not sleep, and eventually we're gonna break down. We're eventually gonna break down. But I was just thinking about how divine purpose, what categorizes or what defines it as divine, apart from other purposes.
Well, I would say
or missions, like the go and spread the gospel and make everyone a disciple. What's the difference?
I'm just seeing Loki's glorious purpose.
And I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Yeah. The commission is a great commission, which is a charge that's given to all believers. Yep. I would say divine purpose is something that God has personally placed upon your life and called you to, and could be different for all of us here. But sometimes I feel it changes in the different seasons of my life. Like for a season, it could be again with the youth. For a season, it could be doing this or doing that. You know, now it's like, you know, doing comms and so yeah, I think ultimately I think it really is your journey with the Lord. And I think, yeah, you can just go about life and not living out your purpose and calling. And yeah, like, you know, using that analogy, it works, it happens, but I guess you're not living up to like the full potential.
Right. Yeah.
But then at the end of the day, it's really not to glorify oneself, but really what you're doing is to glorify Jesus. So it's like almost like, all right, Lord, like here I am, send me. Where are you sending me, and how are you using me according to your will? And sometimes that might play out in a way that we may not expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess that's the way I see it. Like, I think one thing that I really liked what Pastor Les said was, if you don't know your why, you don't know your way, right? And I think, you know, this is a question that we probably are figuring out ourselves, is like, how do we discover our why, you know, in life? Because I think like the older the boomers, the older generation.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, okay, I mean, it's true, right? Like the older generation, they're more concerned about, I wouldn't say they're more concerned. I think their focus was always like providing for their families, you know, making sure that everything's well provided for and everything. You talk about like, oh, but I'm not passionate about this. I think a lot of them will be like, forget passion. It's like, does this job pay, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all about working
like keeping
hard.
things running.
Yeah, keeping things running, right? And then you have like the millennials who will be like, oh, but does this serve my purpose? Like, what is my role in life, and blah, blah, blah.
Why do I need to do this?
Yeah, and then, you know, and millennials, they just suck it up sometimes in the job environment and just carry on sometimes, right? And then you have your, I guess, the Gen Zs who, oh, if it's a toxic environment, like, oh, I'm out, or whatever it is. So I think it's like the attitude towards like, I guess, dealing with like circumstances in life, it just varies over time, and discovering like your how and your why and everything. So I feel like it's definitely a journey to discover your why. And I don't know if it's a journey that all of us can like say like, yep, I've arrived.
I think I feel the way we could find our whys. This is something Les Bowling said in our HKSSM class, and he kind of briefly touched on it in the sermon. Is what he meant when he mentioned burdens, right? I think God would like really make things like stand out to us. Have you seen those reels where it's like some twins are like playing pranks in the public? Like the first twin would come by, and then they pick a victim, right? And then the first twin comes by and says something really like obnoxious that sticks to their head, right? And then like 10 meters later, the next twin comes by saying the exact same thing, you know? It's like to give them like a deja vu prank. And I think that's usually how I usually see God work in my life. That the first time I see it, I was like, oh, okay. And then it happens again, I'm like, wait a minute, hang on. Are these two things related? And I think there's a lot of intention whenever that happens. I can see that there's a lot of intention that God's trying to do something, like whether like closing doors and opening the right doors. So yeah, I think it's like, I think that's what he said. Just keep moving forward, but also keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, for me, I'm still figuring out, but I also remember, I think a few weeks ago when a pastor said, like, if you don't read the Bible, you're basically telling God to shut up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say keep reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And to know more about God's character.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like as Dom say, like keep an open mind about what happened around you.
Yeah. 'Cause
Just keep reading. Just keep reading.
Yes. Because like what Jeremiah says, you know, my plans are for you good, not to harm you, but to prosper you, right? How do we know the plan? Like, so basically, if we know that God is a good father and he loves his children and he has the plans, he has like amazing plans for us, is like, how do we know these plans if we cultivate a relationship with the Father? So yes, you know, jump right into the word. And I think also life experiences too kind of gives you that guidance into like your life's purpose and call too. Like for me, I think one of the reasons why I felt so passionate to mentor and disciple young people at one point is because that's something that I lacked, and I felt that if I had that from or at least if I was more open to it. I think there were people who wanted to pour into my life, but I was like kind of like backed away because I was too shy, or I was like, oh, I don't know if I need this, or it's just socially awkward. And you know, like, could my life have looked different? You know, would I have? It could have been in one of three ways. I could have actually, you know, yes, stayed close to the Lord, or two, you know, because I was so in church, like I may have like pieced out. I don't know, right? There could have been so many ways, and so like my story is the way it is, you know, now. But I see the importance of, you know, pouring into people's lives, and I'm not saying that that's like the 100% like guaranteed of like having, you know, a youth like stick close to the Lord, but so that's something that the Lord has impressed on my heart. And you know, I wouldn't say that it's the ultimate purpose, but it is one of the purposes. I feel one of my whys in my life, whether it be, you know, through the content I create or through just interactions.
And I sometimes feel like obedience is a really key factor in figuring why.
Yeah.
So like, is it Jonah? Jonah was kind of like the Bible story of Gen Z. He was saying, oh, these guys are so toxic. I don't want to go there.
I'm out, bye.
Yeah, but then perhaps the divine purpose is to like, reach the toxic people. So
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I think like as we discover our why, we'll discover like, you know, what we're naturally good at, and then also what, like, you know, like we get spiritual gifts at our spiritual birth. Like, what are we spiritually anointed for? Again, if you look at me 10 years ago, I should not be, you would not expect me to be doing what I'm doing right now, right? So, yeah. Then also, the another thing that, you know, Les said was like, the need is everywhere, but you're not called to every need. So how do you discern where God is calling us to meet the need?
You guys watched that movie called Robots, the animation?
No.
It's like, well, there's so many movies that just says robots.
Yeah, I was like,
it's the one with it's the one with Ewan McGregor, the red guy. Anyway, they have a saying in that movie, it goes, see need,
Fill a need.
and I think that's pretty relevant. I think going back to, like really, really similar to your testimony, Pet, that like, that was kind of like similar way that I was called to youth ministries, that I would not have imagined it either. So yeah, I think like going back to what I said about like, you know, just keep going forward and then maybe see what God's revealing to us. I've had times where God like straight up convicted me, like it's like he took all the receipts of negative things I said and then like turned it like, oh, you see, you said this, oh, you see that, you see, that's a problem. And I'm trying to show you that I want you to help with that problem, but all you did was complain about that problem. And I was like, oh man, okay, all right.
Yeah.
And that was one way of like how God really like helped like point out where a need needed more help. And so yeah, going back to what I said about the burden, right? I think one specific thing that Les Bowling said that I really like, that really complemented this burden thing, is that, well, we all feel burdens, but then it's the ones that kind of like stick with us, right? And I think that's the ones that kind of God wants us to improve on, right? And so that's why this burden stuck with me, and all I did was complain. Yeah.
There's so many needs in the world, and we definitely can't. We don't have to say we're complex. We can't meet every single need. And I think I like what he said. It's like there's like how he felt like, you know, he's empowered to equip Bible students. So no matter what, he will try to meet that need, and he feels energized by it, right? So as long as the schedule allows, he goes for it. And so like, I know that, for example, I remember watching that documentary Nefarious, and felt like the heart for just people who are just caught in that like sex trafficking or human trafficking or whatever. And for a season, I was helping out with organization that deals with, you know, that helps with, you know, victims of that. But then right now I'm not that, but it doesn't mean that, you know, the need still stays me. Like my heart's still for that, right? So yeah.
Actually, that reminds me, yeah, exactly. Especially that one point that Les Bowling said, that he, within the burden and he saw the problem, he was empowered, right? I think, yeah, that's actually a really key point about this for me being the youth ministry, because I did it the first time and I burned out. I was doing it at my own efforts, terrible attempt. But then here again, but then this time God called me, and I think that was a big difference because I was called. Then when I was there, I was empowered, and like every night I did not have nowhere near burnout. So that shows that's like a huge contrast for me of like the difference of being called and not called, and just forcing it.
Yeah, I think sometimes it just comes to a form of a feeling, and then you just like kind of just know like this is something that just like stirs a fire within you. It's like, yeah, I want to meet that need, whatever it looks like. So, and like again, going back to youth ministry, it's like I know my mom like, oh, you're staying out all the time. Won't you get like tired and everything? It's like, but it just I'm just empowered and energized. Like, no, I'm fine. So, yeah. All right. So let's talk about family relationships. So which is harder, live with unhealed hurts in our families and relationships or obtain healing?
Wow.
Which is harder?
Both are kind of hard. But I would say living with unhealed hurts is harder.
Oh, I was going to say obtain healing is harder.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You got A, you got B. I want to do both. Like it's like choose your poison. What do you want? The ignorance of hurt or the stubbornness of unforgiveness?
Wow, so well put. Yeah, I mean both are hard, but for me it would be obtaining healing would be harder because it means to have like hard conversations, and I'm not necessarily like I'm not like saying I'm conflict avoidant, but I don't want to deal with it. So
I think
I'll live. But anyways, you go.
Yeah, it depends on your character. I mean, like once you are, I feel it's just being in that state of being ready to be open to healing. Once you've done it once, then you're really open, and then now this act and this understanding of going to God for forgiveness is so easy.
Yeah.
So I think when you're in the right state, obtaining healing is so much more easier. But then for someone who's stuck, whose life is filled with unforgiveness, to let all of that go in one go is definitely, like, I can understand, is so hard. Yeah.
I think it's a great point that once you started to have the first time, it gets easier. And no, I'm for me, I just strongly dislike loose ends. So I do not want like all these ongoing things going on. This is the kind of guy that you want
for contract the killer.
Oh man.
Doesn't like loose ends. All right, carry on. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, that might be my divine purpose.
An alternate universe.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that also Pastor Les was talking about was the whole spirit of withholding, and that like sometimes when we're facing someone that we're like in conflict with, we want to withhold kindness or love or forgiveness, and he's like, don't do that. That's like a barrier to your destiny, right? So, but it's so easy to withhold, but don't do it. Like I mentioned, like living with unhealed hurts. I guess I'm the kind of person that I realize that my survival process is just numb myself, and just pull through, like just get like bite on the pain, suck it up, and let's just go, right? So to the point where that's how I deal with unhealed hurts. I just suck it up and go, and I don't address it. I was like, it's fine, it's not my business. Well, I mean, there's nothing I can do, right? I can do my bit, but so, which is why I would say it's harder to obtain healing sometimes, and hence the whole withholding. It's like I guess going to survival / protective mode, but who knows, all of that I've been doing has been, could have been a barrier to certain doors being open in my life, for all I know. So, but family relationships is an important area that we need to get right in our lives in order to face fruitfulness. So the one thing that he said, Pastor Lai said, was like, there's no such thing as a self-made person. Which is, I wonder whether all the self-made people are excuse me. But let's talk about this. How has your community shaped you? Like whether in your faith, in your career?
Well, being an extrovert. Actually, no, not even extrovert. It's just simply me having that need to think out loud. I feel that's how I really come to all these big revelations of my life. I'm talking it out with someone else, and sometimes they don't even say a single thing, and I'm like, oh wow, hey man, thanks. And all they did was just like sit there. But yeah, I think so much of me is credit to the people I surround myself with. Yeah. I don't know. There's just too many things to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my very grateful for the friends in my church fellowship. So I used to think of church activities as 100% spiritual. So it has to be Bible study, or it has to be worship, prayer. But then they have let me see the other side. So there is community, there is social gatherings, and just discussing life in general with others, in addition to all those activities.
Yeah. I think like I 100% agree with there's no such thing as a self-made person. Again, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for like the people who either called out the gold in me in terms of prophesy over me, who threw me in the deep end because they knew I could do it, even though I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And then kind of like, yeah, affirmed me in things that I didn't know I was good at, and then which then caused me to have confidence in myself to carry on with that, right? So, and I think sometimes the person that can get in the way is myself, like, oh, really? And then also, yeah, definitely people who basically said, like, you can be better, you can behave better, and thankful for their input. So, yeah, I'm thankful for the community, the people that God has put in my life, which is why I stand by, the fact that, community is important. It may evolve over time, but it is definitely much needed to bring you to where you're at.
Get yourself a kingdom group.
Like the grind. And we move on to the third point, health, which is, very practical. He said, eat less, move more.
No. Eat better.
Eat better, eat less, and move more.
Yes.
And he's like, that's it. That's all I got. I was like, okay. But if everyone adopted your physical lifestyle today, could they be ensured of a healthier tomorrow? That is the question. Dom, what would you change? What are you doing that we should not be doing?
Not enough time to say. Just to admit, I think I made a lot of compensations and compromises for my own preference. That being said, I think I really like what he said. That's why I knew it. Eat better, eat less, and move more. I wrote it down because I was like, well, okay, I don't know if this was his intent, right? I don't know if that was just like he meant that on like the physical sense. But I was like, hey, this actually, it means so much more in the spiritual sense at the same time. Eat better, so yeah, more spiritual stuff and less of junk food, which is like worldly stuff. Yeah. Which is that's the eat less of the junk food, despite how much you want it, and then move more, which is actually doing it, not just. Don't just eat, or else you're just gonna be fat, right? Yeah. You gotta move and like build it into muscle, if you would say. Yeah, I think, and that's words I need to really apply to myself. Both physically and spiritually.
Yeah.
My favorite line of the sermon was, don't commit suicide with a fork. I laughed so hard at that. It was just such a good line. But anyways, but it's
Are you
true.
seeing many people committing suicide with a fork?
No. I don't.
Well, actually, I just finished watching the second season of Squid Games, so that image is stuck in my head.
Okay.
All right, moving on.
I wasn't thinking about that. I think what he means is basically the food that you eat, right? If you're just eating straight up fat and stuff, then you're. Anyways, okay. But some habits to think about, like physical, emotional, spiritual, to live a healthy life. I mean, yes, eat better. I'm thinking like more protein, and so on, because that leads to better muscle recovery. Emotional habits, basically process with people. Don't try to keep everything bottled up, because I think we sweep everything under the carpet. Not healthy. Everything just explodes in your face. You're like, how do I deal with all this? And then finally, spiritual. To live a spiritual healthy life, community, getting into the word, I think one thing that stresses being part of a church as well, that is important. Yeah. How about you, Keith? If everyone adopted your physical lifestyle?
I'm not sure. I would like to think I'm already living a very healthy
Healthy
style. Like weekly exercise, relatively healthy food, and resting. But I feel like I'm still on the urge of not on the edge of falling apart.
Oh,
Like
because of rest or?
maybe rest is not good.
Right.
And skin condition is
Oh.
not good. And
I blame
then-
the Hong Kong weather.
Yeah, me too. And spiritually, you're exercising faith in some sense, but not entirely. And then you're reading the Bible, a prayer, but then it's kind of meh.
It's a journey.
Yeah,
to-
it's journey.
journey.
But I guess it's healthier than most people.
That's good. I mean,
That's good. At least healthier than yesterday would be nice.
again, a journey. All right. Finally, let's talk about resources. Like what he said, give some, spend some, save some, and invest some. But the idea is that, don't let your personal goal be how much you get, but how much you give. And so the question would be, what's the difference between leaving a legacy and an inheritance?
I remember I was talking to this. I'd say this is one of my mentors, in my walk of faith, and he kind of like a complaint. He said that the problem with some like God's generals, right, like the big ones, is that they learn all this, but then they preach about it, but then they fail to pass it on. And I think that's the difference between a legacy and an inheritance, right? When you have all that knowledge and you pass it on, you make your seeding the next generation's floor. I think so. That's I think where I draw the line of legacy and inheritance. That is it being passed on, like you said. Are you investing it? Right? Are you putting it? Are you allowing God's blessings to continue flowing, or are you just gonna let it stop with you? Yeah.
Well, the way I see it is, it's similar to the story of teaching you how to fish, and versus giving you some fish. But then I want to add to that is, you're not just leaving some kind of money or resources and that's it. But a legacy is, to me, is more like you're also giving them the inspiration. Having a goal or some standard or some really good cause that they are inspired and sustainable to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely will not be the kind of person that will leave behind a trust fund for anyone. Let's just be real. So I ain't gonna be leaving like a lot of things behind. Clothes maybe, accessories maybe, but not money. But I think definitely it's inheritance is what you leave behind. Legacy is who you leave behind. So I think I don't want to be remembered for the things that I leave behind, but more like the lives I impacted, and just like be able to disciple and mentor young people into like, knowing that their identity in Christ and who they are in the Lord. I think that would be something I would love to see, as part of my legacy. And maybe there's seasons where I feel like I'm not doing much, but again, it's my life is what it is, right? And I think it was like when you run out of strength, that's when you run out of years. And I feel like I haven't run out of strength there. There are moments where I'm just like, I am definitely on reserve battery, but the Lord's still like, pulling me through. So this whole, thing about what Pastor Les was saying, like, this is not your tough season. It's not your only season. It's not your forever season. And it's like, what's important is like, who are you, going through with it. And so it's like, I'm not concerned about, attaining all this material wealth, but it's more like, how am I, is what I'm doing like ultimately bring glory to God? Is this pleasing to the Lord? And sometimes I wonder, does it make sense, in the bigger picture of His story for me? But I guess I just carry on moving forward, as we said at the beginning of this talk. But yeah. All right, well, yeah, that's that for today. Definitely 4 areas in our lives that we, a challenge to get it all right. But I think when we get it right, that's where we'll experience fruitfulness and, again, realizing that God has definitely set us apart for a important role in His kingdom. And yeah, we just need to move forward. All right, well, that's that for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.